2005. These are the wild scenes that greeted the full-time whistle of a one-point win when Dublin won back the Leinster title of 2005. Last year, against the same opposition, Dublin had 18 points to spare in the Leinster showpiece, with the final whistle being met with nothing more than muted applause.
Their dominance in the province of Leinster continues.
A decade of Dublin dominance has resulted in some frightening numbers, both within Leinster and beyond. Having already won 6 of the last 8 All-Irelands, this year they're going for their 5th title in a row, a feat never achieved before in the history of Gaelic games. They were unbeaten in Leinster since 2010, while picking up a staggering 43 All-Star awards and a mind-boggling 5 different winners of the Football of the Year gong. So where and when did this all begin?
This all relates back, Marty, to the Strategic Review Committee brought out in 2002 under the chairmanship of the former GA President, Peter Quinn.
The thinking at the time, Marty, was that Dublin faced particular challenges in terms of where they stood in the scheme of things GA-wise.
Some of the banner headlines were GA dying in the city or the capital without GA and whatever, and that report came through.
It also highlighted the problems that we have with the competing sports. Subsequent to that, we now receive 1.2 million for games promotion in Dublin. That money is ring-fenced purely for coaching and games development in Dublin.
And it really exploded after that. So many clubs were able to employ GPOs. Obviously, they had to fund half of them.
We have 54 games promotion officers. We have 3 regional development officers. We have a hurling development officer and a football development officer. Last year, Dublin spent 3.6 million on coaching and games development. Of that, some 1.2 from central headquarters. The clubs pay the cost, 50% of the cost of the games promotion officer, and the balance of the funding comes from the county board funds through sponsorships and gate receipts.
Very, very important for us at a national level that the capital city and the capital county is in a good place from a GA point of view. So that was the origins and the thinking behind the plan at the time.
You couldn't foresee 5 in a row possibility coming from it, because they were starting at a relatively low base.
In all honesty, I'm sure the authors of the report probably at the time wouldn't have envisaged, I don't think anybody would have envisaged that there would have been such a period of preeminence at senior football level, particularly for Dublin, Marty, to be honest.
But has the plan been so successful, John, that now Dublin are unassailable? They're way ahead of the pack.
I don't think so. I mean, you're looking at it through the lens of an inter-county scene. What we look at is the club and the participation rates. We have grown participation rates in football in the last 10 years by 58%. In hurling, it is 98%. In terms of games provision, we are providing last year 11,500 fixtures for children between 8 and 12 age group. So this is what we're doing. So what we are concerned about is growing participation.
From the heights of the middle of the last decade, when Croke Park was regularly packed to the rafters on Leinster final day, the attendance has been on a worrying and progressively downward spiral. Even with the great Dublin-Meath rivalry, the hope is for just 40,000 today. Is the Leinster Championship coming to an end? Is it gone past its sell-by date?
No. Leinster Championship is quite vibrant outside the Dublin scenario. Like during the summer, you had some very good matches, and the same in the other provinces. Ourselves, media, we can all talk about change. The reality is, as a good colleague of both of us, the late Eugene McGee, a couple of years ago, I have a remark to him that at Congress, the provincial councils have only 1 vote each. So no matter who I think I am or what I think I am, the 12 councils of Leinster will dictate what my job is, if I have a job.
Even more worryingly, and heading in the opposite direction, is the average margin of victory for the All-Ireland champions, with the last 6 Leinster campaigns ranging from 13 to 20 points. So what's being done to arrest this decline?
Well, the rest of the province since 2017, per year, it's 1.8 million that has been given to them. And we, from a provincial...
That's divided between all the counties of Leinster?
The 11, yeah. And that's, from our point of view, as a provincial council, we look at where need is, right, rather than the county boundaries per se.
Leinster will obviously look to the East Leinster project, which is in its infancy.
That is the model to be adopted, and with accountability and transparency.
There are benefits around that, and obviously Meath and Kildare are mixed into that East Leinster project. So are Wicklow.
I've no doubt, Marty, that the gap will close because, in fairness, it's not up for Dublin to come back. It's up for the rest of us to lift.
I think Dublin are much more self-sufficient now than they were in 2002 and even 2005 when this scheme was put in place.
John, has Dublin GA reached a point where they actually don't need the 1.2 million, that they're now actually self-sustainable?
Absolutely not. We have huge challenges in Dublin. We have developing areas that we have no presence in. There are areas like Cherrywood, Hollystown, Adamstown.
It's a question of learning what has been successful in Dublin and trying to apply that elsewhere, rather than taking a scalpel to something that, as I said at the outset, it has worked.
The county board, a number of years ago, we decided that our model was to develop a cluster of facilities in different areas. We bought land in the Spawell for 9.2 million. That is 275,000 an acre. It'll probably cost us a similar sum to develop this land. We want to roll out 3 or 4 of these around the city.
The absolute amount of funding that went to Dublin 4 or 5 years ago would have been north of 1.5 million. At the moment, it's 1.2. The proportion of our games funding that went to Dublin 4 or 5 years ago was 15-16%. At the moment, it's 10 or 11%.
We have the population, the rest of the country have the land, but the population is no good unless you have the facilities and the land to play our games on.
According to figures released to the Irish Times from the CSO, over the next 20 years, the population of the whole country is expected to increase by 750,000 people, with 75% of that increase in the Greater Dublin area. Based on those figures, and while it has been mooted in the past, is it really feasible in the long term to have just one Dublin team?
I think the idea of splitting any county is unpalatable. But if this continues, it may be the only option.
And don't forget, if you were going down the route, are you constantly on football, concentrating on football only? What about hurling?
I've never met anyone yet who wants to play for a subsection of the county.
I don't see it happening anytime soon. I'm not entirely sure what it would achieve for us, and to the extent that it ever comes on the agenda for debate, Dublin will be the people that will be bringing that to us.
Do you get annoyed when there's a lot of criticism of how much money Dublin get? Is it begrudgery? Is your reaction say, well, lads, you get your house in order, we've done it?
I don't get annoyed. In fact, some people think about Dublin GA more than I think about them.
Learn from what has worked and apply that around the country to raise standards elsewhere, not to penalise the people that have actually done a good job at things,
Now, we have a phenomenal bunch of players. We are winning, but it won't always be like that.